All right, do you want to get started?
Sounds good to me.
Perfect. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our AP Environmental Science webinar with our wonderful author, Andy Friedland. I'm really glad that you all could join us. My name is Nicole Desiato. I'm the Customer Relations and Events Coordinator for Bedford Frame North Publishing Group. I'm very lucky I get to plan all these wonderful author webinars that we host multiple times a year. So if there's any topic you'd like to see for environmental science or any of the sciences, please feel free to send me an email. We're always open to suggestions. For any AP Bio teachers who are joining us tonight, we're hosting an AP Bio webinar about the big ideas in the redesigned course on April 7th. You should be getting some emails about that next week, but if not, again, please feel free to email me and I can send it out. We're going to be taking all questions at the end and through the chat function since you've all been muted to cut down on background noise. So if you'd like to ask Andy a question, please feel free to send it to me in the chat, and then I will ask all questions at the end of the webinar. This webinar is being recorded, and we will be sending out a copy to you next week. I think that's it. So Andy, I'll pass it along to you. We'll get started.
Well, thanks a lot, Nicole, and hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. We want to spend 30, 45 minutes, maybe if there's some questions a little longer than that, telling you some things about AP Environmental Science and our new second edition book and environmental problem solving, hopefully made a little bit easier. Or if you have motivation for problem solving, that often makes it easier, and so that's also what I want to talk about. I had a cough earlier in the week, so I apologize if I break out in coughing. I'll do my best to mute it, but apologies in advance if that happens. Next slide, please, Nicole. So what we're going to do today is, first of all, I'll describe my background, my teaching philosophy, and my involvement with AP Environmental Science. And I'll also introduce the second edition of Environmental Science for AP. And finally, I'll present sound methods for introducing and explaining problem solving in environmental science. So I was an undergrad environmental studies and biology double major at the University of Pennsylvania, and I pursued a PhD in environmental and earth science, also at UPenn. At the time it was called the geology department, but after I graduated it changed its name. And I've been a professor of environmental science in the Dartmouth Environmental Studies program for 28 years. And I've designed a lot of the courses here, including Introduction to Environmental Science. And I've chaired the program for about 11 of the 28 years. And so I've been involved in environmental science in a lot of ways. I also just recently finished teaching Dartmouth's first MOOC, massive open online course in Introduction to Environmental Science. So I've been doing environmental science for a while, and next slide, I conduct my own research on forests in New England, looking at trace metals like lead and mercury, carbon cycling, and what happens when you cut down forests and what happens to the soils. I'm with my current graduate student, Justin Richardson, on the left there, looking at a spodosol in New Hampshire, and the forest on the right is the Green Mountains of Vermont. Next slide. And as I think some of you know, because I've had interactions with a number of you related to AP Environmental Science, about 20 years ago, I was called up and asked if I would chair the committee that created AP Environmental Science, and I was the chair of that committee. We developed the course, and we developed the first few exam offerings. And after, that should say 1995 to 1998, and then after 1998 or so, I stepped down, and then I was asked to come back 10 years later with some of the reassessments that they did and reevaluation of AP Environmental Science. And I think the committee found that our original job was quite good because there weren't any tweaks made after that 2008-2009 reassessment. Next slide, please. So I've been gratified by the success of AP Environmental Science, as I bet many of you are. If you've been teaching it, you know that it just keeps increasing in the numbers of people taking the exams and taking the course. And that says that we are all, I think, doing a lot to generate student interest. And I think that's wonderful. So the more students that show up at Dartmouth and other universities and colleges with a background in environmental science that they obtained in high school is just the better. Next. So I started working around 2000 on a new textbook for AP Environmental Science, and we made a few starts and false starts, and in 2008, Rick Relyea joined the project, my co-author Rick Relyea, and together we pulled together a really nice book. Next slide. Rick is someone who has a bachelor's in environmental forest biology, so what I'm doing now, he was also studying as an undergrad, but he started pursuing aquatic ecology, so he got a PhD in ecology and evolution, and a lot of his work is now on pesticides and aquatic organisms. So he and I have very complementary views in the sense that I'm a terrestrial ecologist or a terrestrial ecosystem scientist, and he's an aquatic ecologist, and so we've really tackled this subject, and we think we've given a really nice coverage to all aspects of environmental science. Next, please. The goal in our first edition, and we kept that in the second one as well, was to provide up-to-date breadth and depth. Breadth of coverage and depth so that you could go into depth on specific issues. We tried to use quantitative reasoning when it is needed, and we would use relevant examples whenever we could. And one thing we both felt important about was we tried to be as neutral, unpoliticized as possible. Give the information to the students and let them make decisions. Next, please. So you are familiar with the first edition, I imagine, of Friedland and Relyea Environmental Science for AP, and that was published in 2012, and some of you might have seen it a little bit before that, and we've had just a tremendous response from people. We've gotten so many good emails and comments from students as well as their teachers, and we were so excited to get to work on a second edition, which is what we have been doing for the last 2 or 3 years. Next slide. And so we asked ourselves when working on the second edition, what is it that people liked about the first edition? Why has it been so successful? So we concluded it's the only book that was built for AP Environmental Science from the start. It conveys a modern synthetic approach that includes systems thinking. It integrates global change and sustainability throughout the book. It uses quantitative reasoning, which is essential for success on the AP exam, but it's also just essential for a good understanding of environmental science. We use relevant examples, and the first edition had lots of AP-friendly features like do the math and checkpoints and AP-style multiple choice questions and so on. So, next slide. So we asked, what can we do? And we think we did pretty nicely with our second edition. So you're looking at the cover, Environmental Science for AP. I know a number of you know how to use the raise your hand function. Do you mind raising your hand if you've seen in hard copy, if you've seen the second edition? I'm just curious how many people have seen it. Okay, I see some hands going up. Good. So we're really excited with the cover, with monarch butterflies. We like the cover, but we're also really excited about a lot of the features inside. Thank you for raising your hands, those of you who've seen it. Next slide. So I want to show you some of the things that we have.